Honestly, I don't agree with the Goodreads rating for this book.
Plot in this, nowhere to be found.
I was disappointed. It was not that juicy. It was not that dramatic.
Will it live up to the ratings on Goodreads? I honestly completely changed my mind on if I think this is truly the lowest book, and it's all about enjoyment at the end of the day. Don't let ratings fool you.
Personally, if I would go back in time to when I bought it, I probably wouldn't. I have the highest and lowest rated books on my TBR according to Goodreads in my hands, and I read them. Do I think the ratings are right? Not necessarily. I was kind of shocked along the way of what my opinions were. Also, rating versus how much I enjoy something and how much it will last in my mind are two very different things. So come along this journey with me.
All right, starting off strong, or not strong technically if we look in the future and assume based off ratings, let's go with my lowest rated book, which is Once More with Feeling by Alyssa Sussman. I am already quite a bit through this book, 100 pages in exactly, actually. I started it yesterday morning and I'm flying through it. I didn't know anything about the premise going into it, but we have such a little brain dump or information dump right off the bat because we're essentially reading an old newspaper clipping. Not newspaper clipping, it's modern day, so a article snippet, and we get the rundown of our main character who used to be the biggest pop star of the era, basically like Taylor Swift, Ariana Grande, think like that, or Selena Gomez when we all loved her, because I think she was younger and had a bit of a younger audience. And then there's a boy band, think like One Direction, and she is dating the main guy in the boy band, and then they break up and rumors circulate that she cheated on him and her career is absolutely destroyed, absolutely shattered. She loses her label, they cancel her next album, they cancel the rest of her tour, and then way later I think it comes out that who she supposedly cheated with is actually another member of that boy group. And so that's pages 1 and 2. And then we dive into the story and learn more about their backstory, why they end up not reconnecting, but just having a circumstance that brings them both together in present day, which I believe it's been 10, maybe 15 years since all of this first happened when they're younger. So I can't tell exactly how old they are. I don't even think it really specifies on the back either. I just know that it's been 10 to 15 years, and I assume that back then when it happened, she was under 25. She was in her early 20s, so maybe they're 35 to 40 right now, somewhere in that range. And it's really good in terms of the plot is interesting. I'm flying through it. I like her as a character, Kathleen. I do. I enjoy reading about her. My only quarrel with it so far is that it's not beautifully written. It's not riveting in the way that East of Eden is, because I am kind of reading them at the same time, which is a really fun exercise to do, reading the highest and then the lowest rated. That being said, I am only 100 pages into this one and still at the beginning of East of Eden, so it's interesting that my hypothesis right now is I'm going to enjoy this more. That being said, I don't know what I'm going to rate each of them, because East of Eden, as I'm reading it, I just got to part 2, I can tell it is beautiful writing and I appreciate the prose for what it is. I'm just not actively enjoying the process of reading it as much as I fly through and enjoy this one. Even though this is not going to stay with me forever, the lessons you learn in this one I've learned a billion times over in other books. East of Eden is giving me something unique and different, but if I have 3 hours of free time after a long work day, which one would I rather pick up? It's this one. And maybe that says something about me and my intellectual stimulation that I'm looking for. Maybe it also says something that I work a full-time job and so I'm doing this as leisure, as a hobby. But I think it's so interesting that reading the complete opposites, I'm not even having similar experiences. I'm having opposite experiences of enjoyment in the opposite direction. Anyway, once more with feeling on the plot of it. We just got to them, like, finally kind of rekindling their friendship. Not even friendship, but just base level being able to stand each other in the same room. It's marketed, like on the back I read that it's kind of an enemies to lovers. I don't really see it that much. The banter is fine. It's more so you can tell she's so hurt by whatever happened in their past, and there's a lot of unresolved. We also don't know what went down with them. It's reminding me a little bit of The Favorites, which was a figure skating book, and it was about like these two famous figure skaters, and they, you know, go through this whole journey together, and like we're getting flashbacks throughout the book of why they ended up where they are, and that's essentially what we're getting here. It's dual timeline, so it's all from her point of view. I'm pretty sure it's hers. Yes, it's her point of view throughout the entire book, but we jump from then versus now, and we're not getting exact timelines as in like the date or the month or the year. We just know that in the past versus present day as they're preparing for this musical. Yeah, it's not just a play, it's a musical. And there's a lot more backstory there. Her best friend she treats not very well. At one point she is a little self-aware about it and makes a mental note in the book to be kinder and be there for her, because she has really focused only on her anxieties and her issues and her problems and kind of neglected her friend. And so I feel bad for Harriet, because this whole musical and bringing them back together to like both collaborate on this musical was all because of Harriet. And Harriet used to write all of Kathleen's songs, and then once she got canceled and her career was over, well, in a way so was Harriet's, which is really sad. But then I guess she should be mad at Cal, the guy, as well. When we go in the flashbacks, it definitely feels like my little self, my younger Laura's dream almost, to have an inside look into pop stars' inside relationships and lives. But then being a bit older reading it, I'm thinking, oh, these people are just awful. Like her boyfriend Ryan, who she ends up cheating on and like has the whole scandal with, he's a terrible person, just dump him. But it seems like a little silly and youthful when I'm reading about it, but it's still fulfilling a little itch from when I was younger to pretend this is like One Direction and, I don't know, Selena Gomez. So that part is pretty fun. I'm rambling at this point. I need to start work. It is almost 9 a.m., but I'm gonna keep reading this. I think I'm gonna go to the gym and maybe read in the sauna. And then East of Eden, I just keep like chugging along on slowly. So we'll see how long it takes me to finish these, but this has been a really interesting experiment. And I honestly am already looking forward to doing it again, like with everything else left on my TBR, which is there. I'll still have a new highest and lowest, so that could be really fun, but we'll see how this wraps up. Boy, do I have some updates for you. Also, hello from the new camera. There's a whole video where I explain why I decided to splurge on my YouTube channel, and just a cheesy little moment of me unboxing and being super excited and grateful to have this hobby of mine and pursue something creatively. So I will link it up here. You can watch it. It is also linked below. You can watch after this video. But I finally finished Once More with Feeling. Finally. I find I went through this so quickly, and for good reason. It was completely bingeable. I will say, I think the Goodreads rating, I'll pop it up here, was about 3.4 stars. I think that's what I remember reading when I picked this book. I'm going to reveal my star rating for this at the end of the video when I also tell you more about East of Eden, because this was the highest, this was the lowest rated. And honestly, to succinctly and in a non-confusing manner tell you my thoughts about this book. First of all, I'm going to give you the rating at the very end when I also tell you the rating of this book. But Kathleen and Cal are messy. This is a romance book, but I will say there was quite a lot of plot development in every other aspect, and the world building, it's not a fantasy, but just this world where she's a mega pop star, like I said, and then Cal was part of this pop group, boy band,
they built that up well. It feels pretty realistic and just like anything we would have in our day-to-day lives and that we would observe in other celebrities. So that was interesting. The glitz and the glamour definitely played into it. I liked the flashbacks of when they were at musical theater camp, but they were kind of few and far in between. Something I said, I think in the last clip, which really remains true until the end of this book, is that Kathleen is a pretty terrible best friend to Harriet. Honestly, Harriet's coming out scene to her later in the book is super bizarre, and you kind of start questioning, like, are you guys really friends? Or is it just you are famous now and feel lonely, so this person you've known since you were younger follows you around? And it kind of seems like Harriet's life has been put on pause to help Kathleen multiple times throughout her life. So it's just a bizarre friendship. I wouldn't want that friendship, and I honestly ultimately felt bad for both of them. Like, I don't think either was being a very good friend to the other. I wouldn't say Kathleen was necessarily the villain. Harriet also wasn't fantastic. And I'm saying all this while staring at a framed photo of me and Jasmine holding hands at the Eras Tour. Now that's a best friend. Nonetheless, on the romance aspect of this book, I mean, the enemies to lovers lasted a pretty long time. He is the director of the new musical she's in, and kind of the plot and like the not mystery, but the exciting background challenge they have is to get to Broadway. And so Kathleen used to be famous, Cal used to be famous, like Harriet's a really talented composer and she's written all the songs in the show. And so it's not that they doubt that the show will be successful, but of course there's that stress. And the more we get into the book, the more we see that, oh my gosh, we need to sell tickets, like, how do we make sure this is successful? They get really into the details of like the choreography. At one point, there's kind of a pointless scene where Kathleen's understudy is injured and then Cal thought it was Kathleen that was injured and he got all protective and like scared for her. And that was kind of cute because it made them get closer, and I guess that's what made them finally rekindle after all these years. However, with a second chance romance, it is so hard to have the first time they met end in such a way that I personally as a reader can overlook what happened. And I will say, after what happened, which at the start we know that the whole world thinks her and Cal slept together, aka she cheated on her boyfriend at the time who was in the same boy band, and that is true, and we basically know this the whole time. But when we finally near the end get the reveal of what actually went down, okay, what happened that night, I was disappointed. It was not that juicy. It was not that dramatic. Honestly, how could people have believed this crazy man, Ryan, like, who was her boyfriend at the time? It just seemed that to have destroyed this woman's career. She went from Katie whatever to now a normal woman who teaches dance sometimes to make money when she's strapped for rent. How is it that that situation, which I won't spoil, but how is it that that ruined her entire career? It was a little unbelievable, let's say, even in the setup of this world. It just felt like there were honestly some filler chapters as well, like when we were at a party in Paris and she was jealous of Cal, but then they later end up going to her room for her birthday. They're somewhere else. Her, Harriet, and him get high and watch musicals. So it was cute. Like, her and Cal's relationship is sweet. They clearly are meant for each other. I did feel, though, I didn't get to know Cal that much. He's not a book boyfriend that's going to stand out for me forever. I can't really tell you anything about him other than he likes musicals. He's not a fantastic singer, but he's a really great dancer. Otherwise, personality-wise, what he truly loves about Kathleen, all of that we didn't really get, maybe because we didn't get any chapters out of his point of view. Now, I've been a bit of a negative Nancy for the past however long this clip is so far, but I flew through it. I found myself inclined to pick up this book in the morning over lunch. Last night, I read maybe 150 pages and I was just zooming. I couldn't wait to finish it because you are getting the dual timeline of present day and then when they were younger at camp, and then in the middle of that, like when they were younger 10, 15 years ago, both superstars. So it's still sweet and keeps you a bit on your toes. You're like, okay, well, what will the reveal be? And how is their now relationship going to progress? When, for example, Harriet begged her not to sleep with Cal, but then we found out Harriet kind of lied to her at the very start about meeting with Cal. She said that he reached out to Harriet, but truly Harriet reached out to him. So there's like a lot of stupid, silly drama. And honestly, that's what kept me turning the pages one after the other. So do I think it was a fantastic book or beautifully written? No. There were honestly some parts where I thought to myself, especially the one more mature scene later on, I did not enjoy the writing style for it. It just wasn't my cup of tea. I skimmed it because the sentence structure, just something bothered me about it. I don't know what it is. Maybe it was too literal. Even when they were confessing love to each other, I found it wasn't as emotional as it should have been. And her whole relationship with her family, like, we kind of just know that it's bad, but she never dives into it, so it's hard to feel close to her as a character. However, it was fun. It was easy. It was easy breezy. So maybe the 3.4 I could kind of understand from Goodreads. I'd be super curious why someone would have hated it. I don't think there was anything completely wrong with it, and I also would never give this book 5 stars, but maybe if someone's obsessed with like the pop star fangirl world, or it kind of gives Taylor, but not really, because Taylor's career wasn't ruined and she didn't cheat on anyone. But I just think the fame she had and how like massive it was in the way we're explained, I was picturing for some reason Taylor Swift and One Direction as like the two. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, that is Once More with Feeling. I don't know if I'd recommend necessarily. I don't know how this ended up on my TBR, I will be honest. I cannot remember for the life of me if I bought this, perhaps. But now let's get into East of Eden.
We're going with the big one. I did think to myself, should I have started with the lowest rated to then end off on a good note? But I kind of want to start on a high note, and I might just swap the order when I edit the video. But chronologically, in the real world, this is the first one I'm reading. And it was really interesting to see the top rated books on my TBR. As you saw in the intro, I'm pretty excited that I'm finally going to have an excuse to get to this. Funny enough, why I bought this and kind of learned about this book in the first place was an Emma Chamberlain video. Many moons ago, she read this book. I think it was also summer, and she was just saying how she devoured it and got really into reading. And so I had bought it, but then never actually read it. So now is the time. I'm thrilled. I already picked out my pretty little Monet water. Oh, I bought this at Argo, which used to be a bookstore that no longer exists, really close to one of my first apartments here. Okay, well then I guess I will use this bookmark since that's where I purchased this book. What a throwback. That was right after COVID, so maybe 5 years ago that I bought this book. I'm really excited. The only thing I'm a bit nervous about is how quickly I'll be able to get through it, because just life is so busy. However, this weekend I may have some downtime, so hopefully I can binge a lot, and I want to get started as soon as tonight. I'm feeling a bit under the weather, low energy, and so hopefully falling deep into a new book will be a little pick-me-up that I need. And I've been loving to just binge books at night lately, so we're in like as good of a mood setting as I could be to pick up this big book. I don't know. Okay, it's about 590 pages long. I don't want to look too much at the end of pages because I might spoil myself, but let's just get reading. I'm super excited about the premise of this video. I just saw so many cool creators doing it, and I was staring at my TBR wall, not knowing what to read earlier today when I thought, let's try this method, highest and lowest on my TBR. I'm just rambling. Let's get to reading the highest rated book. Not only is it the highest rated book on my TBR, it has some of the most ratings on Goodreads. So there's a lot of hype and big shoes to be filled with this book. Maybe the less you have, the more you are required to boast. This is all just talking about mountains. This is a really beautiful book, and then that's where I'm at right now. It is the wee early morning, 7 a.m., and I'm gonna run to a yoga class with Jasmine, but then when I am back home, I have to work. But then at lunch, I would love to read some of my book after I cook. It's a bit of a busy day still. I really liked this. It was funny though, in bed Joe looks over and goes, wow, that's a lot of pages, and wow, that's a lot of words. on one singular page. And I said, I know this is not going to be one of those books I binge in 2 days. I simply just do not have the time to do that, but I'm excited. We're already off to a pretty good start. It is sad, kind of. Like, the backstory we're getting, I don't know who the story is going to be about. We've changed who we care about already twice. Like, we talked about general families, and then now we're talking about Adam and his dad. We've just met these people, but I did not read the back, so I have no idea what this book is about. I've never honestly looked at anything about East of Eden. I think it was kind of common in school, but I never read it or Spark Notes or anything, so I'm going into it blind, which is also fun. And yeah, that's my little update. I will keep reading, but 34 pages in, I'm enjoying it. It's so beautifully written, and it's really easy to read, even though it's not the most accessible. I don't know if unaccessible, but it's written very maturely and elegantly, and like, you can tell just Steinbeck is such a good author and writer, and yet it doesn't feel like it's going over my head or it's too complex to understand. So it's doing a really nice balance of making it easy for me to digest while being elevated. It's the next day since I last spoke to you, and this book is, I was about to say boring, tiresome. Every time I stop reading it, I just feel so sleepy afterwards. I just read for about an hour outside with Ella. It was really lovely, but I find it hard to like keep my eyes open. And maybe I'm just tired today, that could be it, but I slept pretty well and I've been feeling fine otherwise. Let me give you a bit more details. So I just officially got to part 2. I mean, technically I'm kind of flying through it. I've read 136 pages, and they are long pages. The text font is quite small, and it's just that the writing is really difficult. That's the best way I could describe it. Technically, the words aren't hard, but the beautiful and sometimes poetic way in which he writes the sentences, and maybe it's the sentence structure, makes me read quite slowly comparatively to how I read other books. And so maybe it's just that my mind is tired and I haven't read a book written like this in so long, and so it's taking me longer. That could be a factor as well. Also, it is incredibly character driven. Plot, nowhere to be found. It is all about the characters, and that can be good or bad depending on what you're looking for. I'm just a little bit bored. I mean, Kathy's whole backstory was really interesting, really. Like, we kind of, I don't know. It's good, but it's not great. I hate her, which is the whole point. I don't feel any bit of remorse for her. For sure, she's a psychopath or something. We find out about Kathy pretty early on, but I wish I could tell you what the story is about. At the start, it's about this place called the Salinas Valley. The Salinas Valley in Northern California. That is how the book starts off. For the first 120 pages, we did not go there. We learned about them at the very, very, very beginning, and then we were nowhere near there. We were in New England, somewhere near-ish Boston, but in a small town. And there we got the backstory of a few generations, maybe like 1 to 3 generations of this family, and now it's the 2 brothers, Adam and Charles, who we've been following, I'd say, for the most part, for part 1, for the most part of part 1. And now Adam has ventured off with Kathy, who is the reincarnated devil, to the Salinas Valley in California. And it's funny because by the end of part 1, you start feeling for Charles, but when we first get to know that brother, we absolutely detest him. So it is all about the characters. It's an interesting premise of a book. I cannot tell where the plot is. Like, what is the plot? What's the point of me reading this? I could not tell you. However, it is pretty. There are a lot of sentences where I find myself thinking like, okay, clearly this man was a talented author. Obviously Steinbeck was a great writer, and that is an objective fact. However, I am not thoroughly enjoying my experience reading this so far. I am shocked because on the flip side, I'm probably the same-ish percentage through once more with Feeling, the other book, my lowest rated book on my TBR. And I am enjoying my experience reading that so much more. Now, I can tell that one's not written as well objectively, but for me, reading is so closely tied to enjoyment and like, can I fly through a book? Am I learning something for sure? But am I enjoying myself? Like, this is my hobby. This is my pastime. This is my leisure. I should be getting, fulfillment out of it. And yeah, right now I'm hating on this book a little too much. Like, to be fair, I did just read for an hour and I was flipping the pages. I definitely am using this video as motivation to read. I think otherwise it would take me so much longer to sit and get through this. But I have high hopes for myself. I, again, just can't tell where this book is going to go. Maybe it'll continue being little like short stories, slices of life moments from different generations of the families. We just found out like one of the families is expanding, but I can't tell what else. Like, there isn't a good setup. That's what it is. You have to just go into this knowing you're gonna read a book and not knowing much else. I for sure did not read this blurb, which I just realized as I said that out loud. Like, I have no idea what's gonna happen, but that's because I did not read the synopsis. Should I? Ooh, okay, wow. I just kind of got a spoiler. See, that's why I never read those. But okay, I think this is mostly gonna follow Adam from what I just read. Which, Adam is one of the brothers who went off to war. And then, yeah, none of the characters are likable. That's another thing. Before I continue and like leave you in this segment, none of the characters are likable. None of the parents, all of them seem like robots. I don't see any redeeming qualities in anyone we have met, other than maybe some of the doctors who Kathy always fools. And like, there was the sheriff and he seemed fine enough. He's in half a page. So it's really the characters, the super side characters that we don't get to see very often or in depth, that I think to myself, oh, this could be an actual human. Everyone else is flawed to the point of I can't relate, and I've never met someone that inhumane in person, thankfully. And I hope I don't. But that is my impression thus far. Perhaps Adam will have a crazy arc, because from what I just read on the synopsis, we're going to get a lot of time with Mr. Adam. But yeah, so far, it's not the highest rated book I've read, in my opinion, so far. Listen, all of this could change. Famous last words, but we'll keep reading. Honestly, I kind of want to read the other one more, but I don't want my thoughts to get muddled. So that one will be for reading at the sauna in the gym, even though you've already watched the segment about me talking about that book. Okay. I will see you soon with more thoughts. Hopefully better ones. All right, for East of Eden by John Steinbeck, I have made quite a bit of progress, and how I've been actually able to do that is mostly Audible. Let me check on my phone the last place I was. This morning I was doing a little bit of crafting for a little birthday coming up, and I got to chapter 22, and I'm about halfway chapter 22. That's page 266, ballpark, and then chapter 23, the next chapter, is officially part 3, and that is how much we have left. We are definitely now following the family that the book is centered around. I did end up reading just a tiny bit of the synopsis of the book, and it does say we follow Adam and his 2 sons after their mother tragically leaves them, so they're left motherless. And it is wild, the journey we're going on to find out about their mother, Kathy. I spoke about her previously in a clip, and every time we go on a tangent about her life, we actually just had a chapter or 2 about her new life. It makes my stomach genuinely feel queasy. The thing about this book, and it's especially interesting to be reading it after Once Again with Feeling. I was reading a bit at the same time, but now that I finished that one, the difference of how I feel while reading them is completely different. I have to be in a pretty good mood to want to pick up East of Eden. Or, for example, I did read it at the gym this morning and got through nearly a chapter in the sauna. And it was pretty interesting because I was getting in a groove of what's happening with Adam and Kathy. Then she left, and once the chapter on her started,
I couldn't bear to read, and so I put it on Audible, and it was a little bit better, but still not fantastic. Honestly, these are just such unlikable characters. Shout out Samuel Hamilton. You are the only character worth reading at the moment. And Lee, of course. But it's wild because it takes us so long to get into the book and actually meet those characters that I'm genuinely enjoying. That being said, the writing is incomparable. This book versus Once Again with Feeling. I mentioned, but the first few pages, there were so many sentences where I could have underlined or taken some beautiful meaning away from it. And I bet if I open to just the page I was on where my bookmark is, it's no story. This is the first sentence I've seen, okay, on this page, and I'll read it out to you. No story has power, nor will it last, unless we feel in ourselves that it is true and true of us. What a great burden of guilt men have. That is just not a sentence or prose that I would read in Once Again with Feeling. I think every book can have a place and time, an audience that best suits it, and maybe you just want a little palate cleanser, and not every book you read has to be a huge tome focused on a man and digging his wells. Because let me tell you, the actual plot, there isn't really the drama, twists, and turns that we're getting with some other more modern day fiction. It is beautiful. I do think it's expanding my vocabulary as well. I'm definitely speaking a little more sophisticated and eloquent, I think, in Teams meetings, especially at work. I'm trying to take that away from this book. And it's better than I expected. The beginning was set up so slow. So painfully slow. That's an issue with this book, I believe, is the pacing. I just don't care about Wells. It kind of reminds me of Anna Karenina, where I thought to myself, bring me back to the good, fun chapters. I don't want to read about another farm or another cow. That was my experience in Anna Karenina. And I'm getting some flashbacks with East of Eden, because if you make me read about another well one more time, I just won't care. It's wild. Then again, this somehow has nearly 5 stars on Goodreads and has hundreds of thousands of reviews. So am I trusting the masses? Yes, because I'm going to keep reading and I'm going to keep going. I also do know of a few people in my life who have read this book and genuinely enjoyed it. So it's not just a historically good book, like anyone can enjoy it at any point in time. At this point, I'm rambling. I will say, I don't have that many updates to give you other than we're still with Adam. Finally, he's being taken out of this trance ever since his wife left right after having the babies. Turns out they were twins. I was thinking to myself, when I read the synopsis and saw he has 2 boys, I thought, I would find it very shocking that Kathy stays to have another baby. But she didn't. She just had 2 boys. Popped them out, both at the same time. And so they're still toddlers, not even toddlers, they're babies. They're 1-year-old and they're finally being named, which I guess was a big point of why Sam was very mad and decided to go check on his neighbor and say, hey, name your babies, get out of your trance, stop being depressed, wake up and be a father. And it seems to be working. Maybe that's why it's such a good ending to part 2, because we're about to get into part 3. So I don't know, we might have a time jump, or at least see Adam now be an actual father to his 2 boys. I will leave you there for now and chat once I've read through a bit more, maybe in the next part or after. I'm definitely more motivated to finish this as well and see how the 2 compare at the very end, because the pacing and my willingness and excitement to go pick it up definitely do not match the ratings of the 2 books, but maybe this is just a way more of a slow burn and I have to keep reading to get more invested. We shall see, we shall see. I have finally finished East of Eden by John Steinbeck, the highest rated book on my TBR according to Goodreads, and I also finished Once More with Feeling, which was the lowest rated on my TBR, and boy do I have thoughts. Starting off with East of Eden, because that's the one I haven't spoken to you about in length yet. I unfortunately don't have the physical copy with me because my bag was lost on a recent trip I took to Denver. There's a whole video on that coming about my solo trip, hiking, reading, going to Barnes & Noble, and all that fun stuff. But I don't have my bag, and the book was in there because I did in fact finish it on the flight to Denver, which I think is exactly what I needed, a set of uninterrupted hours where I could just sit and trug through the end of that book. And trug through is honestly the best way I can describe it because I do not agree with the Goodreads rating for this book. Something I picked up way later in the book, East of Eden, which you may or may not know, I did not, is that it's a loose retelling, or it's pretty heavily influenced by Cain and Abel, the story of Cain and Abel, which is essentially looking at good versus evil. And I kind of got it with the two brothers, except we really focus a lot more on Adam Trask. And what's interesting is this book is a family saga. We follow many generations of this family, starting off on the East Coast, and they end up on the West Coast in the Salinas Valley in California. And that's right when we start the book. That's about the first chapter. It is so beautifully written, and Steinbeck is setting this picture of the Salinas Valley and just making a lot of gorgeous prose, and it's very pretty. However, this book drags along for so long, and I will say with a classic of this length, it starts feeling a bit like a chore at some point to pick it up. Even once it's been a few hundred pages and you're finally pretty invested in the characters, it just got really icky and hard to read because there is that whole balance of good versus evil. So Adam is essentially a good man, and he goes through so many hardships in his life and overcomes the evil that was basically bestowed upon him growing up from his parents and his situations. And he goes through a lot of hardship. Within a few chapters, we see how he's really hardened by life, and then eventually he has two sons, and the person he's with, Kathy, is like the devil reincarnated. Honestly, that's how she feels. There's almost no humanity in her. I don't even want to say almost. There is no humanity in her. And she follows such a bizarre life. Out of all the cheating and lying and killing and mischief she gets up to throughout her life, and she has no remorse for any of it, I'm surprised where she ends up. She clearly could have gone to be a princess somewhere, or swindled someone for millions of dollars, which she does end up successful, but it's really sad, the situation she's in. She's running a night house. If you've read it, you know, and if you haven't read it, I don't even really recommend this book. I was struggling to pick a star rating, and I've realized the feeling I have been left with, because now it's been a few days since I finished it, and I've been reading some really good books since. So honestly, compare and despair, but I've been enjoying other books so much more since then. And I realized I will remember the story, and I will remember the characters because they do leave an impression. I think less so Adam's sons, who, funny enough, are in the synopsis of the book. We don't really, yes, we do get to know them, and I feel for them. Oh, Cal. But it's less about his sons, and it's more the side characters that added so much to the book, and I think that was the point. I can absolutely see why people have loved this over the years. The writing is complex. The story is as well. There's so many big ideas jam-packed into these layered characters. And throughout all of it, I will say the writing is gorgeous. You can tell he's a really talented author. So objectively, I can appreciate it's a well-written book. I just didn't connect with it emotionally. I thought the nice characters were pushovers and could have stood up more for themselves. They also didn't communicate their feelings very well for so much of the book. And then the evil characters, I just hated them and honestly despised reading their chapters because I was so angry that this was the situation. And it didn't resonate. And that's okay. It's just shocking that this is the highest rated book that I had on my to be read. And I really didn't like it. I think I will remember those characters. As I was saying to finish that thought, I'll remember this book and the characters and some parts of it, especially how I felt specifically when I found out they were moving, or specifically when I found out that he was joining the army in the end, or when he wanted to drop out of university. There are so many core moments of the characters, the many, many characters and generations, which I likely will remember. But I don't know if that's because I know I didn't, but it's not because I loved this book to that extent. It's because it is so long and you have to concentrate really hard while you read it because they are complex and very delicate details, and I think there is a lot of symbolism and different literary devices that Steinbeck uses throughout, which you have to be paying attention and remember things mentioned chapters hundreds of pages ago to make the connection. And so because of that, I was all hands on deck reading this book, and it's more so I think of a memory thing or just how much of my life I committed to reading this, that will make me remember it. And maybe that is the marking of a well-written book. For some reason I did finish it, partly because of this video, but I do think after I got to maybe part 2 or 3 of the book, I had decided, okay, I've committed so much of my time, I will finish it. And I'm glad I did, and I'm glad I read it. I just personally, if I would go back in time to when I bought it, I probably wouldn't. To recap East of Eden, I don't even know what star rating I gave it. Maybe 3 stars, but it's more like a 2.5. It's just a story about family tension, a little bit about fate and like what you're born into and if you're destined to become the person you were born into or if you can shape your future a little bit, and dealing with, I liked this a lot because it's brothers, both generations, and being born and having the same situation, the same upbringing, how differently your lives can venture off is really interesting, and how your family can essentially branch off, but you were raised and brought up with the same values and same experiences. It feels like ages ago that I read this, but Once More with Feeling was the lowest rated book on my TBR by Goodreads, and I probably enjoyed myself more while reading it, but I didn't care that much about it either. Like right now I could not tell you many details about the book. I can't remember his name. Cal and Katie, Kathleen. It was interesting as a premise. I talked at length about it with you already. It's so curious how I find them both pretty equal. I don't think I enjoyed this more than East of Eden. It was just maybe in the moment I flied through it easily because the rating also wasn't fantastic, and it was kind of just like easy to flip through. You don't have to think that hard. Versus East of Eden was a dedication to literature, if I could put it that way. But my enjoyment wasn't necessarily through the roof. I actually felt really icky at some parts, and that's all personal preference. I think if you're looking objectively at how the book is written, pacing, and plot, East of Eden does deserve higher ratings, but when I look at it and am giving them ratings, I think I rated both 3 stars. That just goes to show you can't judge a book by its Goodreads rating. I guess this one was a little spot on, but East of Eden, I thought I might love it because of all the hype, and I didn't. With that, I leave you after this long journey. I don't even know how long it's been since I started the first book for this challenge, but thank you for coming along. I had a lot of fun doing this little experiment. I'm interested now what the next highest and lowest on my TBR are. I'd be curious if I just keep going down that way, but I did read 2 other books since these, maybe 3, and I'm having a really good reading month, so I'm very happy about that. I'm gonna keep going on this momentum, probably gonna read tonight after work. If you've read either East of Eden or Once More with Feeling and had the same or very differing opinions, please let me know in the comments below. I'm so interested. Are you one of the people who rated East of Eden 5 stars, which hundreds of thousands of people have as well? Or are you like me and it just didn't click? Okay, thank you so much for watching up until now. If you liked this video, please make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Comment down below what you thought of either of those books and what your current read is, and I will see you very soon in the next video. Bye!